Welcome back to Switch Stars, Luke here, and today on the channel we're taking a look at Bot Gaiden, a fast-paced action platformer inspired by the likes of Ninja Gaiden and the Megaman games, which promotes skillful and speedy gameplay as players race their way through enemy-filled levels in an attempt to reach and take down bosses in as fast a time as possible. Trust me though when I say that this one isn't for those lacking patience or with a short fuse, so drop a like, subscribe for more Nintendo Switch content and reviews, and let's get into it. So the story in Bot Gaiden is a little bit tenuous, but it revolves around two ninja bros, Robyu and Bytron, who are on a mission to recover golden power skulls from the hench-bots of big baddie bot Giorqio. Draining power from the skulls, each of them seeks to become more powerful in preparation for some kind of master plan which is purposefully left rather obscure, but it sets up the scenario for us, provides the basis for some unique gameplay mechanics, and is delivered via some comic book style cutscenes which all look pretty awesome, with plenty of humour thrown in there for good measure. It's not the deepest of storylines, but let's be honest, most of the classic NES platformers were also a little lacking in the narratives, but the characters and enemies in this one all have their own personalities, and at least there's been some effort put into presenting a coherent scenario for players to dive into. Now, like I said, if you've ever played the Megaman or Ninja Gaiden games, you'll find plenty of parallels in terms of the gameplay with this one, but it also does plenty to distinguish itself with its mechanics and power-ups. To start with though, the game offers up 6 different levels which are able to be completed in whatever order you see fit, and like Megaman, each of them rewards you with different power-ups, though the difficulty does increase as you work your way through them. The game also provides multiple difficulties which not only increase the damage you take, but also affect how many power-ups you retain when you take damage, which believe me makes a huge difference, so much so that I'm actually quite reluctant to provide a rating for the game as I've only managed to complete it on easy mode. I did attempt to play through on normal mode, but being as I'm absolutely shy at these kind of platformers, I had to bow out before I ended up rage quitting and smashing my Switch to smithereens. Anyway, getting into the game in the first level, you can toggle on some tutorials to show you the ropes, and the control scheme is relatively straightforward but also has a decent amount of depth to it. You can run and jump as expected and of course attack, though this does prevent movement, and you also have a downward strike which can be used to bounce off enemies, destroying them in the process. While airborne, you're able to glide, enabling you to cross larger distances, but you're unable to perform attacks whilst doing this, and taking any damage will also stun you, causing you to fall directly downwards, so you need to quickly hit the glide button again to recover lest you fall down into a pit to your death. And in general the control scheme is pretty tight, though it's not without its frustrations. I sometimes felt like my button inputs didn't register, and similarly to Ninja Gaiden, jumping into a wall has you cling to it, which is necessary in a lot of the platforming areas, but it can also be incredibly annoying as there's no way to easily detach yourself, and descending through areas can be a real nightmare. Now the levels themselves are all handcrafted and there's some really nice variety on display. Each of them features multiple screens and includes both left and right side-scrolling variants as well as a Contra-style ascension level, and for the most part the platforming elements are relatively tame, though there are plenty of pitfalls to get lost down as well as plenty of traps for you to avoid. Scattered throughout levels you'll find power-ups, and the game uses a kind of progression system for these, which starts by offering you a jump jet pickup granting you a double jump ability, before upgrading your attack adding a ranged projectile to it, granting you a dash attack, and finally a speed boost. Each of these must be picked up in order though, and if you take damage on normal mode you'll lose one of them, whilst hard mode causes you to lose them all, but these provide significant advantages when trying to reach the boss, and losing even one of them can be incredibly detrimental. Easy mode lets you keep all of the power-ups when you take damage, and I found the difficulty hike between easy and normal to be pretty extreme, though like I said, I really suck at these kind of games, so I'm probably not the best person to base the difficulty factor on. Now when it comes to enemies, there's also a reasonable amount of variety to them, and these include both ranged and melee variants as well as ground and airborne enemies, but you will encounter the same types of enemies in each of the levels with slight reskins. Most enemies take a single hit to kill, so taking them down really isn't an issue. But what does become apparent almost right away is that the developers are really expecting players to memorise enemy locations, as you're given almost no time at all to react to them. Most of them are purposefully positioned to screw you over at every opportunity, and I personally don't much like this kind of gameplay, as it doesn't so much rely on player skill and more just on repeatedly playing levels over and over. The same can be said of the game's bosses. While each of them provide unique encounters and have set attack patterns for you to master, most of the bosses are huge screen fillers which again give you very little time to react to their attacks, and as the story pertains to, bosses drain power from the skulls, meaning that they slowly gain more health the longer you take to reach them. So not only are they more difficult to beat if you're slowed down by taking hits along the way, going into fights without power-ups or dying against them and losing all your power-ups makes them feel near impossible, as many of the fights feel like they really depend on you having these power-ups. As with the levels though, beating bosses is designed to be an iterative process, with you memorising the battles, beating them to receive upgrades which improve your power-ups and grant additional lives, and then attempting them again to achieve faster times and obtain more upgrades. Once you obtain these upgrades, you have a lot more options in terms of manoeuvrability, and the pace of the game really speeds up, and each level can be beat in under 2 minutes, so much of the game's replayability comes from this process. And while easy mode is pretty much a cakewalk by the final couple of levels, it does allow you to get the hang of things, providing some good practice before taking on the harder modes. Now the final point to note is that the entire game can be played through in co-op mode, and while I didn't have the opportunity to try this out due to there being no online co-op, it does sound like a less stressful way to play the game, having additional mechanics to help you work together, and if I hadn't already published it, then Bot Gaiden would definitely be on my list of hardest co-op games on Switch. Overall though, Bot Gaiden is a solid Megaman Gaiden-like, which will test both your skills and your patience. It's frustrating and downright unfair at times, and I do feel that the power-ups play a little too much of a role in your success, especially when you obtain the one which freezes all on-screen enemies for a few seconds. But if you're looking for a challenge and are a fan of classic platformer experiences, then this one is well worth a play. So visually, rather than the usual pixel aesthetic, the art direction in Bot Gaiden is much more modern, featuring hand-drawn characters and environments which have a kind of sketchbook look to them. But there's a lot of detail, and I especially like the designs of the enemies and the cutscenes. For the most part, the performance holds up well in the game, though there were times when I experienced some frame rate blips when things got a little intense, and though few and far between, these were definitely nearly game killers when they happened. Audio wise, the game has some awesome sound effects, including some classic announcements when you snag those pickups, and the soundtrack is packed with high octane metal music which fits well with both the modern visual aesthetic and the fast paced gameplay. All in all though, good stuff on the audio and visual front. So while I personally found Bot Gaiden a little too much to handle on anything but easy mode, for many this one will no doubt provoke feelings of nostalgia with its old school levels of difficulty and reliance on players memorising level layouts and enemy locations, though the power-up system does provide plenty of opportunities to utilise fast skill-based movement techniques, providing you manage to hold on to them, that is. One thing I do feel the game is missing is some kind of online leaderboard system to compete in, but the in-game timer and the ability to instantly restart levels at the push of a button makes it an ideal speedrunner game, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this one at an AGDQ event at some point in the near future. For a rating though, I'm going to be giving Bot Gaiden 4 out of 5 stars. It's certainly not going to be for everyone, it's hard as nails and will no doubt see plenty of people rage quit before seeing the end screen, but overall it's a very well put together game and fans of classic platformers will no doubt have a ball with it. And with that said, is this one that you're going to be up for the challenge with, and what other hard as nails platformers do you recommend playing? Let me know down in the comments section below. As always, drop a like if this review helped you out, subscribe for more Switch reviews and content, and until next time, thanks once again for watching, take care of yourselves, and game on.